Welcome to another NJThrives small business webinar. These are weekly webinars that we hold for small businesses to help you start, grow, and thrive. So I am your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC Specialty Consultant and CEO at nilumamedia.com. And the NJSBDC, for those of you who are new here, we're a statewide program. We're powered by the SBA and partners, and we help small businesses in New Jersey with three things: no cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. So to get started, we're going to go over some headlines. If you were here on Tuesday, you would have seen some of them. Not much has happened in 2 days. And then after that, we'll get into the webinar. And about 10 minutes before 1, we'll hold a little Q&A session. So as far as headlines, again, we've gone through this probably since last week. Not much has happened since last Thursday, nothing new at least. So the first one here is a first of its kind collaboration between the SBA and the MPHC. And basically what this is going to help is provide a greater reach to the SBA to provide highly entrepreneurial Black community access to networks, financial literacy, technical training, capital readiness, so they can too, have the American dream of business ownership. So that is one. Next one here is a little interesting. Governor Murphy and some New Jersey CEOs launched a New Jersey Pay It Forward program. And what it does is it's going to provide zero interest loans and grants to students who are enrolled in non-degree credential and certificate programs approved at approved training providers. By the way, we put the links to all of these items into the chat so you can save them. And also, this is exciting. 2026, we are hosting the FIFA World Cup. So whether you're a sports fan or just a business owner, there are ways that you could take advantage of the traffic that is going to happen, because everyone's coming from around the world. So if your business can somehow take advantage of the new influx of people during that time, I'll start planning that out. But yeah, that's super exciting. And that is pretty much it for our headlines for today. Now, before we get into the webinar, things to keep in mind is please type your questions into the Q&A box. If they're in the chat, sometimes they may get lost in all the conversation. And number two, please complete a 3-minute survey. So once this webinar closes out, you'll get redirected to a survey. And once you complete the survey, you'll get access to the webinar resources, such as the presentation and the recording of this webinar. So with that being said, I'd like to welcome Sierra Gutierrez. She'll be showing us how to manage QuickBooks Desktop as a small business owner.
Hi, thank you so much, Christian, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time today out of your busy schedules, out of your businesses, to be here today to learn about QuickBooks. Many of you may have seen our previous webinar on the various platforms of QuickBooks. Today, we're going to be talking specifically on desktop. Like Christian said, my name is Sierra Gutierrez. I am a financial consultant to individuals, small and medium-sized businesses. Been doing this for over 15 years now, and using QuickBooks for the majority of that time. I've worked in various industries such as restaurants, fitness, legal, real estate, 3PL. I have a wide range of clients, and I've been able to use QuickBooks across all of those industries, which is why I am such an advocate for the product. Today, we're going to go over a general overview of the software, not anything very specific, but just the main functionalities. So I want everyone to keep that in mind. We do have a Q&A box. So if you have anything in particular that you want to see, I'm going to make this a bit interactive so that you guys can see how to actually do some of the very basic things that are in QuickBooks. So with that, let me just start our presentation. All right. Nope. Can everybody see that? Okay. All right. So in case you've joined this webinar and really are not familiar with QuickBooks at all, QuickBooks is an accounting software package developed and marketed by Intuit. First introduced in 1983, QuickBooks products are geared mainly towards small and medium-sized businesses. QuickBooks has various desktop versions as well as various online platforms. And the great thing about QuickBooks is that you can pick between a variety of products based on not only your specific industry needs, but what you're utilizing the software for. So Intuit, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with them, but they also own Mint, which is a budgeting tool for individuals. And they also own TurboTax, which is a tax return software. So all of these products are under one big umbrella. And if you use all of these products, your information, if you choose to, will go across all. So for example, if you decide that you're going to start using QuickBooks for your company and you're going to file your own tax returns, and they have ways for you to do that assisted as well, all your information will communicate from one software to another, which is great. And that doesn't matter whether you use desktop or whether you use online. Okay. So one of the biggest questions that I get is, why is QuickBooks Desktop better? In an age where cloud-based is really mainstream, desktop has just more security. If you are a person that works with very sensitive information and you just don't want to open that on any computer, then desktop is really the version for you. However, that also means that if you ever need to work on your company file, that you would have to have access to that computer at all times, which can be great depending on, you know, what you do, but also can be a bit cumbersome if you need access to the information right away, or if your CPA needs access to the information right away. So that's one of the things that is great about desktop, that the security, you can really control it. You can control access to it. You know, that person would need to have not only the login information, but also the login information for the device itself. So it really will create a very secure environment for you. QuickBooks Desktop is also better in the sense of it creates more advanced reports compared to the online version. The online version does have the most common reports, such as profit and loss statement, cash flow, balance sheet, all of the basics. But if you wanted very specific, tailored reports, the desktop version is truly the best for that. Another good thing about QuickBooks Desktop is that it has industry-specific features, which once we go through, we'll see kind of a bit of the setup process. It'll ask you a bit more questions in comparison to the online version, which will kind of ask you very easy yes or no. So all in all, the Intuit products or the QuickBooks products are very user-friendly. They are made for you to feel confident in your ability to handle your accounting, right? However, the desktop version, I believe, requires a little more experience and maybe a little more training, because there is a lot to see, a lot to do. And it's just better to navigate it once you kind of know what you're looking for. Another question that I always get is about pricing. So desktop, you buy a license, and you can use that version until they kind of streamline it out. You can use it for years. You pay one time and you can use that same software, have that same file for however long you want. What happens is that that particular version of QuickBooks may be phased out and you might not be able to, for example, integrate certain imports for like bank fees and things of that nature. I saw that happen with QuickBooks Desktop about a year and a half ago, that if you didn't upgrade your license, like it wouldn't connect with your banks. So you would have to manually enter transactions, which no one wants to do. So that's one of those things that can be a little bit of that require maintenance or upkeep, but it does have a better pricing structure because the license itself will cost you $250 one time, and then you can use that until you can't use it anymore, versus an online version is a membership and it's a recurring fee every month. And you might end up paying a little bit over $300 a year, depending on the functionalities that you need. So it's a little pricier online, not desktop. All right, so we're gonna go over all of these different sections in QuickBooks Desktop. The version that I'm using is a trial version. If you do not have QuickBooks currently and want to kind of navigate through the desktop version before you commit, they do offer a trial version, which is what I downloaded on my computer to show you guys. And you can play around with it. You can see the different functionalities the same way I'm doing it. I'm using the Mac version. It's not very different than the Windows version. The homepage and everything will look very similar, if not the same. The fonts and the colors might be a little different, but the functionalities, where to find certain things, it's the same across the board, no matter if it's PC or Mac. So just keep that in mind. That's why when we open the file right now, you're not going to see any information in it. It's going to be very generic because obviously I'm not going to bring up a client's file and breach their confidentiality. So, like I said, if you are not sure if that's a price you want to pay and you want to download the trial, you can go right on their website and download it for PC or Mac, whatever you choose, and kind of play around with it before you commit. If you decide to upgrade after you've entered some information, I think after the 30-day window, they allow you to do that. So that's nothing to be concerned with. We're going to go through the initial setup. We're going to go through the home page, which is like your base or your dashboard. We're going to go through the vendor center, the customer center, banking. I'll talk briefly about that. Item list, which is if someone is in the service field. For example, let's say you have a cleaning company and you have different tiers of cleaning, or, cleaning the oven is one item and cleaning the home is another. There's a way to create that. Inventory management, that's a big part of QuickBooks. And I know a lot of people are interested in that. We're not going to go too deep into that today because that itself was its own webinar. But that's a big function in QuickBooks. And the report center, which no matter what version of QuickBooks you use, you're going to utilize, except this report center, I feel, is just easier to find specifically what you're looking for quicker. All right. So let's say you've downloaded the trial version or you've bought your version of QuickBooks. This is where you would start. This would be your first window. And up here, you would enter, right here, it says my company file. That's the company name we're using for the purpose of this lesson. The address, 123 Main Street. This is my email, or whatever email you guys are going to obviously use when starting your company. Company start date, it's going to ask you. It'll automatically want to start January 1st, but that can change. You can start it whatever date you see fit. And then it's going to ask you income tax form used and federal ID. So that is important because you need to know, if you already are a company that is incorporated, what your formation is, in order to select the right document. So if you're unsure, that's something you would definitely ask your CPA about. And these are the different forms that it gives you as options. And again, in order to know which form you'll be filing for in the future, let's say it's a startup, you would definitely ask your CPA. Now, within QuickBooks are our chart of accounts. And if you're unfamiliar with what a chart of accounts is, imagine your company being a filing cabinet. A chart of accounts is a folder for every different aspect of your business. So in order to make sure that we're giving you the right folders for your industry, you need to choose it, because clearly a restaurant needs certain things to display on their reports in comparison to a trucking company. So it's important to take the time to answer these questions when you begin, because it'll set you up for success. If you're choosing the wrong industry, if you're unclear, if you just don't know which way you're going for, I would not just choose any, because they're not all going to display the same. So that's something to think about and to consider. And almost all industries fall under something that's already here. So if it's not 100% your industry, choose whatever's closest. It should be okay. And you can always tailor it. So for example, let's say you chose art, writing, and photography, and you get, in your chart of accounts, you get 50 different items. I'm just throwing out a number. But in reality, you only need 4 or 5. It's okay. That's fine. You can remove the other ones, or you can never use them. Nothing's going to happen if there's nothing in it. All right. Now, once we set all of that up, we're going to see this window here, and you're going to get a guide me window. So if you were to set everything up, choose your industry, you've entered all the information that you need to enter, and you're unclear what everything does, what each icon stands for, you would just hover your mouse over it, and it'll give you a quick guide as to what you can find in that specific icon. So as you can see, the home page or the dashboard is kind of like a flow chart, which is great, because if you don't know where to start, this will definitely help you. But it'll also be a quick way for you to get to specific sections in QuickBooks without having to click a lot of buttons. So if I wanted to create an invoice, for example, I can just navigate the mouse right to here, double click on that icon, and it's going to bring me straight into the customer center, which would allow me to create invoices. All right. Perfect. So we're going to get out of here, and we're going to go into QuickBooks. All right. I just want to make sure. All right. Let's see. All right. Okay. Everybody sees that. All right. So we are in QuickBooks now. This is how our dashboard or our main screen will look. Again, we see that flow chart that I mentioned, and it has all of the different capabilities within QuickBooks, right? Purchase orders, which for some industries is very important. There's the ability to do that. Estimates, also very important. And an estimate, which is what you would send to a customer if you're looking, or a client, to retain their services. If it does get an approval from the client, then that would turn into a purchase order. And if you need to buy certain materials in order to, do whatever it is that you are doing for the client, you would need to receive the inventory. And then after you receive the inventory, that vendor who provided you the materials would either give you a bill or a receipt or something of that nature. So that's the whole point of the flow chart. It's to kind of see or show you visually where in the process you are. All right. Okay. So I'm going to maximize this. and show you guys. 1 second. Just check the chat really quick. That's the beginning. And I'm just checking your questions really quick. Please, everyone, if you can, put your questions in the Q&A box and we will definitely address them before the end of the seminar, okay? All right, let me just close this out. All right. So, not sure if you guys can see based on the limitations of my screen, but I'm going to jump into the customer center. Oh, no, it stopped. Give me 1 second, you guys. One sec. All right, give me 1 second. All right, so this is the customer center right here. And this would be where you would have a list of all the customers that you have. Now, assuming that we have no customers, we would need to enter our first one. So if we click the little plus button on the bottom, we would see it gives us all of these options. There's new group, new automatic group, new customer, right? New group would mean, for example, let's say you have a client that has multiple buildings, again, using the example of a cleaning service, and you need to bill them as a company, but you're servicing building A, building B, building C, and building D. Each building or each time you've gone in for cleaning would need either a separate invoice, if that's the way the client wants, or one invoice that shows all of the buildings. But for your purposes, you would want to track or know which one of those 4 buildings required what. Did you require 2 people cleaning? How long was it? You know, you would need for your own accounting purposes for it to be very detailed. The customer may not need to see it all on their side, but you would need to see it on your accounting. So that's where a new group would come into play, where the top would be the customer name, and then there'll be like these subgroups or these subcategories, and you would be able to check, oh, what did I do for building A separately, building B, building C, building D. But the customer would only get the invoice for its own entire company. So that's one of the beautiful benefits of that. Now, if we were to do new customer, this is what it would look like. All right, we would enter the customer name right at the top, company name, if there's a separate company name, all of their demographics, all of that information. So that way, when we create an invoice, we would show not only our information, but the client's information. It's super important to enter all these fields completely because it also makes your invoice look incredibly professional. Also, this is a contact card for that same client. If you don't have their number readily available, if you misplaced their email, something of that nature, if all the information is here in the customer center, then you don't have to search anywhere else. You also don't have to maintain that information anywhere else. When running certain reports, especially accounts receivable reports, you're going to want to make sure that all the information, who your contact is, all of that is in here, because once you print that report out, it's going to show all of that across the board. It's going to show you the email, the phone number, the address, all of it. So you won't have to click in here, look back and forth, search for the information. So important to always put that in. Additional info would be if there's a rep, and terms would mean if you're offering terms to the client, if client A, you offer them 30 days, you would note it here. If you have a client that you're only offering 15 days, you would also know that there. If you have a credit limit for the client, you don't want them to exceed a balance of $1,000, you would also specify that here. Sales tax, also very important. This would be the window where you open up all of that information. And let's say you've been working on this client all year, but you're just starting QuickBooks today and they already have a balance with you, you would enter it here so that it will show as a carryover, meaning that when you show a statement to that customer, it's not going to just show them what they have based on QuickBooks when you started using it, but when you started providing service. So I think that's very important. And one of the beautiful benefits of entering all the information here. Job info, this is if you want to kind of track jobs at different stages. You can customize this however you'd like. Again, I'm not going to go very into this because this is very industry specific, but if anyone has any questions on this, please let me know. And I will try to the best of my ability to provide you the information. It's difficult to, during these webinars, because QuickBooks is so jam-packed with information, I'm trying to kind of give everyone a taste of different functionalities that no matter what industry you're in, you're going to utilize, all right? So that's the customer center. Now, if I were to go, second. All right. This would be the vendor center, which looks very similar to the customer center. And again, we would enter the information in a very similar way, right? You can go here. This is another quick way to get to it. Or you can go right here to this plus button, and it's going to ask you new vendor. We would enter the information that we see on the bill in the same way that we would enter it, like we would see for a client. We would want to have their complete information, phone number, any terms that we have. Also, this import vendors, let's say you have a lot of businesses when they start, they love to use Excel as a way to manage either their vendor list or anything of that nature. You can import your vendors that way too if you have it on like a master sheet. What the specific columns and things in order to make it cohesive are, that can get a little bit tricky, but it is possible. That way you don't have to enter things twice. Another question that many may have, let's say you start with QuickBooks Desktop and you love it, but then your business grows and you don't want to use desktop anymore because you need something that you can access right away. You can always change from QuickBooks Desktop to Online. It's a very easy migration process. Doesn't take very long. The length of how long it takes really depends on the size of the file. So if it's a very large file, you've been working QuickBooks Desktop for 10 years and you want to go online, it might take a little longer versus someone who just has a smaller file. So keep that in mind. You know, nothing's etched in stone. Or if you start online and you want to move to desktop, that's always an option too. It is possible to move from one platform to the other. I would not recommend doing it until year end or after your CPA gives you, you know, the go ahead to do it, because you don't want, God forbid, your information to get lost and you have to start from scratch. When you're exporting from QuickBooks Desktop, it is a QBO file. It's an actual file that can only be opened with a compatible QuickBooks software ownership. So if I have QuickBooks Desktop and my CPA does not have a QuickBooks subscription, he cannot open my file. So that's something for also you guys to consider. All right. Let me look at the Q&A box really quick. All right. I'm going to answer some questions. All right. Charles says, how do I add a new equity account? Such account is to be used to track funding into the businesses. Okay, so if you ever want to add a new account into your chart of accounts, that's a very easy way to do it. You would open up the chart of accounts. I don't know if you can see it on here. And then there's a plus button on the bottom. And it would ask you what kind of account you want to open or what other item you want to add into your chart of account. And then you would select, in this case, you said equity. And then you would type in whatever description you would have. and then it would automatically create it. I would say though, if it's something specific to funding previously, you may need a journal entry from your CPA. I would definitely ask them how they would like to track it, and not just do it yourself. But if you are doing all of your accounting, then there's plenty of ways for you to find the answer for that. YouTube is always a great resource for doing journal entries, for any of you guys that are curious about that. So I hope I answered your question. Isn't desktop no longer available from Intuit? No, it's still available. It's one of their their highest selling products. Desktop isn't going anywhere. And they have various versions of it. There's QuickBooks Pro, QuickBooks Pro Accountant, Premier, Enterprise, you name it. They have a ton of desktop products. By desktop, we mean, the ones that are locally stored on your computer. Can one license be used for two devices, your desk PC and your laptop? Yeah, I mean, the licenses usually allow for multiple users being used in multiple devices. You'll get like a license key every time you download it into a different computer. So you can have it on more than one. It's totally doable. I think when you buy the software though, it'll ask you those questions, excuse me. All right. I had a problem getting the regular desktop with 3-year license. It looks like we have to buy a license yearly now, correct? I heard that. I think the reason why they're doing the yearly license or asking people to upgrade or the software every year is because there's so many changes in the way that information is shared, specifically staying compliant and safe within banking and all of that. So I think it's to make sure that all your information stays secure and that you can continue to link your external accounts to the software itself. Does QuickBooks help with transfer from online to desktop? Yes, they do. QuickBooks does have a lot of support. I feel with desktop, they're a bit better versus online. And it's fairly simple to do it. Again, you can find resources on how to merge it on the actual website. And they'll ask you if you already have an existing QuickBooks account, they will ask you and they'll walk you through that process. Meaning when you're online trying to find a different product, it'll ask you if you're already an Intuit customer. When is subcontracts? When is the subcontracts info would go? For a small nonprofit. I'm not sure, Vicky, what your question is. Can you rephrase that, please? All right. For a small nonprofit, does QuickBooks make sense? Absolutely. QuickBooks makes sense for anyone, from a solo entrepreneur to an office. I've used it with customers that have 500 employees and customers that have 3. So it's made specifically for that purpose. It wants to be customizable for no matter how small you think the business or how big. Now, the pricing structure varies, right? Because a customer that has 500 employees and a customer that has 3, they have different needs. They may need different levels of reporting. So that's really the general question is what do you need it for? How specific do you need to get? But QuickBooks is for everyone, really. It really is. All right. When it's on several desktop, how is the info entered in one synchronized? Right. So good point. So the only issue with working on desktop is that doesn't upgrade in real time, like if you would on a cloud-based platform. What would happen is if you're working on the file, you would need to check out the file and I would work on it afterwards. Or that's depending on the license that you have. Or if you have a QuickBooks Pro, I believe, several people can work on the desktop version at the same time, but not everyone will have the same levels or privileges. So for example, let's say your CPA, let's say your bookkeeper is entering invoices, your accounts receivable person is creating the invoices, and someone else is running financial statements. That's fine. Everybody can do that at the same time. The issue would be is if I'm doing banking or reconciling and someone else wants to jump in and reconcile, they can't do it until I step out of that window, if that makes sense. I hope that answered your question. How do I migrate from Windows to Mac? That is an Intuit question. I think it should be fairly easy, but I'm not really sure. But I definitely know that they can support you with that. Our company uses subcontractors. I want to be able to write a check for them. When do I set them up? Oh, perfect. Okay. So let's say you have a contractor that you work with on a regular basis. They become a vendor for you. So you would add them as a vendor. So we're gonna use the example of, excuse me, of the subcontract. So we're gonna make Mary Jo our subcontractor. We're gonna write in her address here. I'm gonna do this fairly quickly. Fairview, New Jersey. I don't remember what the zip code is for Fairview. We would obviously enter all her information here. All right. All right. So Mary Jo is in there. We see Mary Jo. Now, Mary Jo sends us a bill. 1 second. Sorry, let me close this up. I would go in the Vendor Center. I would go into Enter Bills. And this is what it would look like, right? We have a new bill for her. Let's go to Mary Jo. And it'll automatically, excuse me, populate based on whatever information I put in for Mary Jo. Now, let's say Mary Jo works for me very, very frequently, and she sends me a bill a week, and I pay her once a month. It would show me here on the right-hand side all the open invoices I have for Mary Jo, right? Now, I'm going to enter a bill for Mary Jo. Let's say for her. Let's say I'm using office supplies as an example. She, got $100 worth of office supplies for me. I entered 100. If this is for a certain customer that I want to tie it to, I would enter it here. If I wanted to say 2 staplers and a folder, I can enter that here. If it's billable, that means that if I want to bill, if she did this for a customer of mine and I want to make sure that I track that expense of Mary Jo to my customer's bill, then I would select billable, because then when I create that bill for my customer where Mary Jo provided $100, it will pull it from there and it will remind me that don't forget when you invoice John that you have to also add the $100 that you paid to Mary Jo. So as long as I'm tying it here under billable, it will give me that pop-up when I generate that invoice, okay? And class would mean if I wanted to run reports based on different classes, like let's say I want to divide my vendors into location, Fairview, Cliffside Park, Fort Lee, and Lodi, all vendors that work for me in those specific locations, I can give them a tag or a class, which would be, let's say, Fairview in this as an example. Then I can run custom reports for everything that's under the class Fairview, all vendors, all sales, all anything under specific Fairview as a group or as a filter, if that makes more sense. All right. So I saved the bill for Mary Jo, saved, wonderful. And if I want to pay her or I cut her a check, I would need to have a bank account set up. So this will bring us right into the bank account center. I hope that answered your question, Vicky. Okay. All right. Now, in banking, right? Online banking setup. So once we have our QuickBooks set up, one of the biggest things that we want to do is that we want to connect our accounts into QuickBooks. Why is that? We want to be able to see all of the accounts that are tied to our business in QuickBooks, so that way we can import the transactions and not have to manually add them. You can import credit cards, even if that credit card has various users on it. You can import all your bank accounts, money market accounts, any account that is listed. And I mean, I still have yet to find one that is not in this list. You would set it up and connect it to QuickBooks. And then every month, or however it is that you update your books, you would see the transactions in your bank feeds. Now, when QuickBooks imports the information in the bank feed center, which I don't think it'll show us here, but let's see. All right. No, it wouldn't show us here because we don't have anything set up, but it will, when it imports it from your bank, the transactions aren't automatically just going to go inside QuickBooks. You need to classify them first. And that's great because mistakes happen. And sometimes you download transactions twice. Like you already downloaded, let's say you were looking to download May and you downloaded February. It happens. That doesn't mean that you can't erase it. It's not going to affect your books. So that's one of the reasons. And also too, there's checks that you write out manually. There's things that need a little bit more clarification. You can go to Target and buy a bunch of different things. Some might be office supplies. Some might be that you bought, food for a marketing event. So Target can't be classified, or one trip to Target can't be classified as solely one thing. It could be 5 things. So that's another reason why it's important to classify the transactions. Also, when you do classify your transactions, it will create rules if you so choose to. So let's say you go to the Exxon all the time to get gas, or you go to BP to get gas all the time. And every time you want it tied to gas expense, QuickBooks will memorize that. And every time it's imported, it'll auto categorize that if you want it to. So you don't have to always review it and review it and review it. QuickBooks is not perfect though. Sometimes it can see the beginning of a name and think that it's a category that it doesn't belong to. So it's always important to review the transactions before you actually accept them. So that way, everything's being classified the way you choose to. Also, kind of going back a little bit into the chart of accounts, you want to review the chart of accounts with your CPA, because your CPA may have a chart of account that they want to use. They have specific numbers that they use for certain accounts. They have a specific system that they use. They may want you to use the one that they're comfortable with, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. You can actually import a chart of accounts as well. So that way it's in alignment with what your CPA wants to see. Okay. Perfect. What is the opening journal entry to credit owner equity with $1,000 fund? But you have to ask, Charles, you need to ask your CPA. Can you please go over how to set up payroll using QuickBooks? We can't go over that today because, again, that's a whole section of QuickBooks that would need its own webinar. But what I can tell you about QuickBooks is that whether you use online or remote, they do have a payroll function. So similar to how you would work with one of the big companies, ADP, all of that, you would enter your payroll, create your payroll, and they would generate the liability forms, meaning that you would be responsible for cutting the checks to your customers, to your employees, and also sending in the documentation for the tax liabilities. Some people like to do payroll through QuickBooks because instead of having to pay the tax liabilities right away, they have a little bit more of a grace period. It's not collected all up front, but it's a slippery slope. I think that it really depends on if you have a really good handle on those things. I hope that answered your question, Sally. I'm sorry. I wish I could go more in depth into that. Is there a way to retroactively import payments from earlier in the year to credit cards without repaying them to that? Oh, yes, absolutely. You can create an account or the accounting period for QuickBooks however far back you want. You import all the information, and as long as, for example, let's say you're importing a credit card, you need to import also the checking account that went into those payments so that the transactions are linked. It's not necessary. It can be kind of like a fictitious, you can name it something else, but it'll be easier. I would say upload all the information for all things that are interconnected. So if you use the checking account for the business to pay for the credit card of the business, then obviously we want to upload both things because we're going to see both transactions happening within both periods at the same time. So it'll just be much easier to do it that way. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right. You only have a few more minutes, so please get your questions in. Again, this would be the banking assistant or where you would set up your or connect your banking information. And then once you do that, you'll be able to import your transactions. Now, really quickly, let's talk about one of the best things about QuickBooks, which is the report center. The report center is where your accountant will, for the most part, or any other institution that wants to know the health of your business, you would need to run certain reports in order to see that. Profit and loss is probably one of the most common ones and one of the most important reports that as a business owner, you need to understand. In a profit and loss report, you need to see what your income was for set period and what your expenses are. And this is a real look, factual look into the health of your business for either a year, a week, however it is that you choose to run these reports. Obviously, you're not going to get a report unless you enter all the necessary information. But it is important to be able to run this for yourself. And if you want to choose to grow your business at some point, if you're working with us in one of our centers and you're looking for capital infusion, they're going to ask you for these type of reports. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if you're able to run them yourself and you don't have to make a phone call and find out when your CPA is available to sit down and run these for you? These reports will be right at your fingertips if you're updating your information on time. On another benefit of using the reports is that you can run them based on many different things. So a profit and loss by job. Let's say you work in construction and you quoted this client $2,000 for floors. But then if you ran a report on that job, the job actually cost you $3,000. You just lost money, you know, unless you're doing that actively and tracking that. How would you know? How would you know that you are not giving them the accurate price? A lot of other things in here that are just really useful for businesses. I think that you can really get lost in the capabilities of all these reports. And that's what's different with desktop is that, as you can see, this is just under the company and financial tab, these reports right here. There's still many, many more. There's the sales tab, and these are all reports tied into sales. There's customers and receivables. If you're in the service industry, you're going to want to know who owes me what, how long has it been since they've paid me, a collections report. This is going to be a report that you can print out for someone. It'll have all the customers' information, all of the amount that they owe, the last payment that they made. You know, this is great if you have people calling on the phone trying to find out when your next payment is going to be. Customer phone list. That's what I was mentioning to all of you about why it's so important that when you set up a customer that you're entering all of their demographics, because you want to make sure that all this information is up to date. Item price list. So once you create an item list, again, this is for people that invoice things that are very specific. You can always maintain it. You can change the pricing at any time, but this will show you, let's say if you wanted to see, what am I charging for this example, standard interior brass hinge, you would be able to see that fairly quickly. Job, time, mileage, time by job. I mean, there's just so much to do here. Another one that I feel is very important, as important as accounts receivable as your accounts payable, right? You want to make sure that you're looking at, when am I supposed to pay these bills? Is this due tomorrow or is this due in a month? When cutting checks, you want to make sure that you can see what's out there, what is left for you to pay. Because as small business owners, sometimes we tend to think that money in the bank is money in our pocket, and that's not the case. If there's $1,000 in the bank account and there's $15,000 worth of bills, those $1,000 are not for us. We have to figure out a way to get that taken care of. 1099, for those who work with subcontractors, this will be a great way to give you a list or a way of tracking your 1099. Sales tax. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's just so much here for us to do. So I think that, let me see if there's any more questions here. Let me see. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. Chris, I know we were supposed to put the Q&A thing up. I was trying to answer questions as they came in. I know everybody has so many questions.
No worries, no worries.
All right.
We can go ahead and pull that up now.
Okay. I apologize, everyone. This is always what tugs at my heart, is that I know you guys have so many questions and there's only so much we can provide for you within an hour. And we try our best to cram the information and give you guys all that you need. Let me see. If I write checks throughout the month and then download the bank transactions at the month end, will the fee disregard the duplicate entries? No. So let's say you write the checks manually and you enter it as you paid the bill in QuickBooks. When you import the bank feeds, it'll auto match it as long as you put the check number. So if in QuickBooks you put pay bill, I use check 123 to pay Mary Jo $100. When 123 imports from the bank, it'll automatically tie it to that payment to Mary Jo. So no, it won't duplicate the entry. How do I credit for a bank account? How do I do a credit for a bank account or credit? I'm not sure what that question means, Diane. I'm sorry. If you could rephrase it. Since I use online and like to see how things transfer over to desktop, can I have them both for a short time? I'm sure you can. I mean, both offer kind of a trial basis, so you can kind of play around with both. It really depends on what your industry is, which one I feel would be better, in my opinion. If you don't have high-level accounting needs and you are a business that's on the go, I would advocate for QuickBooks Online. But if you have things where job costing and job estimates are a big part of your business, then I would definitely go for desktop. How do I do a credit? Oh, we try to answer that. If I enter a bill and write a check from QuickBooks and then download, no, okay, we answered that. If I need to update my ingredient cost, can I have a historical cost, or do I just change in the list? I think it gives you historical, but you can manually change it in the list. It really depends on what you want. And there's also ways that'll show you like percentage wise, like one price to the other. I know that happens with restaurants are very big on that because of the varying costs of ingredients throughout the year. So they would want to see that. If I'm doing professional consulting for, 1 second, let me just clear these out. Okay, if I'm doing professional consulting for the pharmaceutical industry with little overhead and costs, I would definitely go for desktop. I would go for online. You can send your invoices online. I, for example, use online for my own business and my own purposes. I don't use desktop because I work mostly as a consultant. There's no need for me to use desktop. I don't use item lists or track inventory or anything of that nature. And I also like to be able to access my information, create an invoice, scan a receipt, all of that through my phone if I need to. So John, I would definitely, for you, I would do online. If I have a credit from a store for a purchase I made, I return the item, getting credit. Oh, you would go into the vendor center and create a credit memo, even if the vendor is a store that you went to one time. It's easy to do that. Okay. I think we answered. You're welcome, Vicky. I think we answered all the questions. Still have a few minutes in case anybody, and please remember to use the Q&A box. Peter, what is the difference between QuickBooks backup files and QuickBooks company files? We have a desktop on a, okay. All right, so the backup file is what you use to import it or restore it. Like, let's say you are changing software programs, you're upgrading your license, you would need to create a backup file, not a regular company file. And that usually I think ends in B instead of O. What is the best way to have one answer backup file? You can, I think the best way to share QuickBooks files is to do like a system that allows you to check it in and check it out. So if someone has the file checked out, no one can make changes to the file. SharePoint is great for that. That's one of the ways we've used it before. Let me see. All right. Let me see. I have a client who was doubling every deposit for 3 years. Wow. And he knew he was doing it. Basic accounting principles are a must. Yes. It's always important, especially when using any accounting software, that you take some time to learn it, because like with anything in technology, garbage in, garbage out. You want to make sure you're doing the right thing, have a little bit of training. So that way you can easily navigate it. I know this was a very summarized version of what QuickBooks is, but there are plenty of resources out there to help you. I know it can be a little daunting, but take your time. This is meant for you to be able to use it on your own. So please take the time to use it. It's so important for your business. I think, when will we have another webinar? I'm not sure. Chris will let you guys know.
Yes, when it comes to our webinars, you could check out njsbdc.com/events. And there you'll basically see everything that we have going on. Not only the ones that are coming from the state, but also other counties.
All right.
So it looks like there's no more questions. So thank you, Sierra, for a wonderful presentation again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everyone, for taking time today.
Absolutely. And for everyone, our next event is next Thursday. And we're going to talk about building your business with local search and really how to optimize the Google Business Profile. So if you ever searched up, food and the little listings that come up first with the directions, phone number, all that stuff. How can we make that better so you can get more eyeballs to your business? So you can go ahead and register for that by scanning the QR code here. I'll give you guys a second to do that. All right, cool. So thank you, everyone. We are the NJSBDC. We've helped 15,000 plus businesses with no cost business consulting, training and events like this one, starting at $0, and exclusive small business resources. So to get started, go ahead to njsbdc.com/request-counseling. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Sarah, again. And I will see everyone next week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.